Welcome to our online Community Crime Prevention Forum. It's a quarterly meeting. Happy to have you here using our Zoom app tonight. So thank you for joining us. I would like to just start us off by introducing myself. I am the Crime Prevention Officer. My name is Officer Ben Ransom, and I will be the MC for tonight. And I'd like to start us off by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would please join me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to introduce our Police Chief, Jim O'Shea, for some basic introductions, and we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, and once again, I want to welcome everyone who's taken time out of their evening tonight at 6 o'clock for our quarterly crime prevention meeting. For those that missed our last two meetings, we did host some community policing and social justice forums. Both of those, if you'd like to look at the video, you can find those on the website, and I believe Facebook if you'd like to look at those. They are filmed with the comments and questions that did come in. Tonight you're going to hear on various topics in the area of crime prevention and also services to the village. We're going to have Dan Humphreys, who's our bike patrol officer and also our traffic and plainclothes tactical officer, talk a little bit about bike safety and bike patrol. We're also going to have Ben Ransom, who you just saw, who's going to talk a little bit about the services that we provide here at the police department and also community alerts. And he's also going to cover the when, how, and the why to contact the police, which is very important. Commander Jim Greenwood, as mentioned at our policing forum, was going to go through the 2019 traffic study that is was just released by I.D.E.S. We had provided information on 2018. The 2019 just came out. He's going to provide some details on the I.D.E.S. traffic study. Detective Mike Freeze is also going to speak tonight, and he's going to speak on burglary activity and the importance of security equipment and also other preventative measures that you can take as a resident and homeowner. But first, our guest speaker of the evening is the Director of Training and Education for Sarah's Inn, and we're very excited to have her this evening. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Colleen Suktis.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to the River Forest Police Department for having me out here, and a special thanks to my colleague Ben Ransom, who we work together on a number of community activities, including a domestic and sexual violence task force at Dominican University. So that's how Ben and I met and how I got the prestigious invitation to come out and speak with you all tonight. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Sarah's Inn and the services that we offer our community. And I want folks who are viewing online to feel free to, put in your questions as I speak. This is kind of informal, so I'm happy to be interrupted with a question that we can answer. I know our logo is up on the screen for you really easily. Our website is www.sarahsinn.org. So we're pretty easy to find. And you can also follow us on social media if you ever have any more questions about what I'm going to talk about tonight. I'm sure that folks are familiar with kind of ongoing dialogue during the COVID-19 pandemic that domestic violence has been on the increase. So I'll speak to that a little bit this evening and about what that really means. As we can be aware, the pandemic did not create more domestic violence. It's that the pandemic exacerbates domestic violence that really is already there and is hidden due to the isolation that victims are currently experiencing. So we'll address that a little bit more. But I want to talk to you first about kind of the services of Sarah's Inn, how you can get help, how you can be of help as well. So Sarah's Inn has been in this community for 40 years. July 1st, we are celebrating So we're going into our 40th anniversary year. So we've been around for quite a long time. And actually, Sarah's Inn was started by a woman who is one of our wonderful volunteers right now, but who was a social worker at the River Forest and Oak Park Police Departments part-time. And she, with some of her other colleagues who did volunteer work, really started to see back in the late 70s, early 80s, that there was a need in this suburban community for domestic violence services. Back then in Illinois in the late 70s, we only had 2 domestic violence programs operating, one in a little bit south of Springfield, Illinois, and then one on the northwest side of Chicago. It's called CAWC, Connections for Abused Women and Children, and they operate a shelter. And that was it in the whole state back then. So this group of volunteers really started to have a conversation about what would be of need. And it was through their work within the police department that that happened. So we have a very long-standing connection to our local police departments, in particular River Forest and Oak Park. So Sarah's Inn, as I mentioned, we've been around for a long time. And we have 3 distinct programming areas. I'll speak to our prevention first, in deference to the fact that this is your crime prevention meeting. Our prevention program has been operating for a little over half of the time that Sarah's Inn has been in operation, about 20 years. And our prevention programming targets youth within a school setting. So our prevention educators will go out to schools. We typically see kids from 6th grade through the end of high school, and are invited into a classroom to speak to our young people, typically for at least 3 to 4 days within their setting. Now, some of our high schools, we might be with the same group of kids for 3 or 4 weeks, if we can finagle that with the high school and work out time for all of that. Each year has a different curriculum. So in our 6th grade classrooms, we're really talking about things like healthy friendships and how do you choose a friend and how do you be a good friend. So we're preparing them for possibly the eventuality of dating. And then by the time we get to our 8th graders and our 9th graders, we're really talking about a dating relationship. What do you want in a partner? What do you want to be for your partner? And then as we move into the high school, we're really adding on those layers of complexity and talking about things like pornography and substance use and abuse and consent in sexual relationships and a lot more of the complicated things that they're going to be dealing with. Along with that work in the classrooms, we also do a lot of prevention training for youth. So participating in conventions and things like that. Our youth committee is students from our local high schools that we serve. And our youth committee, along with our staff, last year went to Springfield and they led workshops at a huge youth convention about things like consent and dating and all of that. So we're really proud of those students. If anybody has a high school student that you think is interested in participating in something like that, you can look at our website and you can find information about kids joining the youth committee. But prevention is really all about thinking about the behaviors that we see, and certainly the behaviors that our officers see out in the community, things that are arrestable, and taking 20 or 30 big, huge steps backwards and saying, where did this behavior come from? Because it doesn't just show up one day. It's something that is kind of seeding its way through somebody for a long, long time. So if you are thinking about your relationship with your partner and you use controlling tactics and you think it's perfectly okay to force yourself sexually on your partner, that didn't just happen one day. That came from someplace. And the place that those kinds of behaviors come from are our beliefs and attitudes about what relationships are like, what having a relationship with an opposite sex is like, what is my permission and what are my abilities, what am I allowed to do in a relationship. And so we want to strip all the behavior stuff away and talk with kids about what you think and what you feel and really start to address that. And what we hope that we do in the time that we have with them is to get them thinking about, you know what, it's not right of me in my dating relationship to constantly be grabbing my partner's cell phone and see who they're texting. You know what? My partner is their own individual person, and even though we're dating, they have the right to talk to other people, even people I might not like. And so the ultimate sort of plan of prevention is to help young people to change their thoughts and beliefs and attitudes around dating and around relationships, so that when they become adults, they don't even think about the behaviors that are going to lead to something like an arrest. And so we're very fortunate that within a lot of our communities, we are able to work with youth from 6th through 12th grade. And so that really helps us to see how our curriculum can build year to year, and how by the time we see students in the 11th and 12th grade, they really are progressing and really remembering the content that we, worked with them on when they were in 6th and 7th grade. And so that's really great to see. So that's our goal, is to really be able to saturate a community within that school system within that 6th to 12th grade. Now, of course, we know that 6th grade is even too old to start with. We'd love to be working with kids, when they're just tiny tots, and we'll get there someday. But right now, 6th through 12th grade. So that's our prevention. I want to spend a minute and talk with you about our intervention programs. Our intervention programs are those services that are geared towards folks who have already experienced the domestic violence in one form or another. So that is our adult victims, children and teens who are victims or witnesses of the domestic violence, as well as perpetrators. Most folks might not recognize that we have a program for perpetrators of domestic violence. We call that a partner abuse intervention program. And so there are participants certainly who are court mandated after a domestic battery arrest, but we are more than happy to have participants who just decide for themselves, something's not right, I really need some help, I don't like the way I'm acting in my intimate partner relationship, I really want to do better for my partner, and you can voluntarily participate in the program. That program is a 6-month program, and so folks, whether they're voluntary or court mandated, they have to do the entire 6 months, and it's weekly. And it, again, addresses, very similar to our prevention programming, it addresses the beliefs and attitudes that lead to the behavior choice for a perpetrator. A lot of folks, I think, have a misunderstanding that anything that is court mandated is kind of steeped in shame and guilt, and you shouldn't have done those things. And we really try for our program to be about accountability. That's a key word in domestic violence services, is that we want perpetrators to be accountable for the behaviors that they chose, but that doesn't mean that they have to feel shame around those behaviors, because people can change, right? And if somebody really wants to, and they are going to work hard at it, that magic can happen. So that program is part of our intervention services. And then I think the meat and potatoes of an organization like Sarrazin is, of course, our services to victims and survivors. So we have our 24-hour crisis line that's available, and we've made some tweaks to it recently during the pandemic. We now have our crisis line available through an app, so that with our staff working remotely, we can have as many as 6 or 7 staff members answering the crisis line at the same time. So that's kind of a neat thing that we learned throughout all of this when we've been working remotely. And sometimes for folks, that crisis line, or looking at our website, or following us on social media, that is the introduction to them even thinking about, I might be someone who needs these services. This kind of sounds like what I'm experiencing, although maybe I don't want to call it domestic violence, I don't want to call myself a victim, but sometimes people reach out to us for lots of different reasons. They reach out and say, I might be interested in volunteering, or I might have some things to donate, or I just want to learn a little bit more about your services. And then throughout that, learning about our services, we find out that, yep, this is a person who could really benefit from these services. So a lot of people have asked me recently, have your calls to the hotline spiked during the pandemic? They've increased. I wouldn't say they've spiked, again, because people don't necessarily self-identify, oh, I'm a victim of domestic violence. What we have seen an increase in is our partner agencies observing domestic violence within the population that they serve. So our partners in substance abuse, our partners in the DCFS world, our partners in the parenting services world, our partners in the mental health world, all saying through conversation, we're hearing more and more about the domestic violence. So it's definitely on the rise. So within our intervention program, we offer individual counseling and advocacy for adult victims. I say adult victims, a lot of people still think that just means women. It doesn't. While women are the majority of people who are negatively impacted by domestic violence in terms of victimization, men can be victims as well, and certainly our services are available for anyone who identifies as a victim. So that individual counseling, that work has continued throughout our work remotely phase because we can do that work through technology. Now, of course, we know that's not available to every single victim. If you're living with your perpetrator, you might not be able to have access to a safe space to engage in a conversation with a counselor. So we're gearing up towards being able to return some of our services on site and make sure that those folks who have not been able to utilize those services are really the first ones that get to kind of come back to the office. We also have legal advocacy services. This has also been a little interesting during the pandemic. Every courthouse kind of does their own thing. Out in this community in the western suburbs, people would go to the Maywood Courthouse on Maybrook Drive. All of those services have been being handled remotely and through video teleconferencing. So at Sarah's Inn, we have set up a legal helpline for the entirety of the Chicago area, so Chicago as well as the western suburbs. And so that legal helpline is available on our website, and that you can contact us, anytime and get information about what courthouses are operating, what's actually happening, how are hearings happening. Right now, as I said, everything is remote, and all follow-up hearings and things like that are really just being sort of pushed off. So if somebody had an order of protection and they were due to come back to court, on a certain day in April, that's just been kind of pushed off. And we don't know yet when the courts are going to really completely, fully open up again. But emergency situations, they are able to handle through video teleconferencing. And again, you can look at our website, you can call our crisis line and find out more information about that kind of help. Another service that we offer is our children's and family services. And children and family services are geared towards helping the relationship between that child and the adult victim who is the protective parent. All the research in the world, every research around domestic violence in children is going to tell you the same exact thing. One, kids are not doomed. Even if they grew up witnessing domestic violence, there is help for them. They do not have to grow up to perpetrate or be a victim. And two, the thing that's going to help them to not be doomed is a healthy, bonded relationship with that protective parent. So while our services for kids are about trying to help them understand safety and understand domestic violence and understand choices that their parents are making, it's also geared towards that adult parent who's been victimized to say, I know you're concerned about safety and things, but you also need to be concerned about your relationship with your kid. Because let's face it, 10 years from now, your kid is not going to remember that on a Tuesday night, you were really focused on, your safety plan. They're going to remember that you engaged with them about their homework, or you went to their, baseball game, whenever that can happen again, right? That's what kids are going to really remember and focus on. And so we work with our parents to kind of modulate and be able to do all of those things all at the same time, right? So that they continue to have that well-bonded relationship. We also offer support groups for our adults, teens, and kids. So those support groups are all gender non-specific, so anyone can join a support group. All of our services are available in English and in Spanish in the communities that we serve in the western suburbs. We have quite a lot of folks seeking services that are monolingual Spanish speakers. So our partner abuse as well as our victim services are available in Spanish. And that's really important, that even though a lot of our participants are, maybe learning English and they really want to practice it, when you sit down for an hour counseling session, it's really helpful to be able to have that service in your native language. We also do a lot of immigration work with that community, and you can learn more about that on our website. And finally, the training and education program, of which I'm the director of, is really all about this. I get to do this. I think I have the best job in the agency. I get to just talk to people about what we do. I get to tell the stories of success of the agency. I get to share what it is that we're doing. And so I would really just encourage folks. I manage our volunteer program. So if you are interested in giving back in any way, you can always think about volunteering. You can always think about donating that half a pack of diapers that your kid grew out of that you don't know what to do with. So, you know, there's lots of ways for you to participate and give back. If you're a member of a particular group, we are still doing community education, right? It just looks different. There's like 5 people in this room, and I'm standing very far apart from them. But we're still doing it. We can do community education through a lot of different platforms. So if you have a group and you'd like someone to come out and speak with your group a little bit about domestic violence, about Sarah's Inn, we would be happy to do that. So I know that my time is about up. Ben said, do you want a slide presentation? I said, no, I kind of go off the cuff. And he's like, okay, I'm not so sure about that, but our time is almost up. But if there are any questions that came in, I'm happy to answer any questions. Or if any of our folks here have questions that you think people might have, I'm happy to do that. Nope.
Do you want to just give your website out one more time?
Sure. It's www.sarahsin.org. And you can follow us on social media at Sarah's Inn Oak Park. That's our Instagram and Facebook.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Colleen. So as you can tell, Colleen is an excellent speaker and trainer, and she is able to go off the cuff like that. So we enjoy a great relationship with her through Sarah's Inn. And so, again, I encourage everyone to take advantage of these great organizations that are local, that provide great support and great services. We're really blessed to have these type of organizations so close by that we can tap into. So visit that website, and you can also contact me at the police department to get in touch with Sarah's Inn. So thank you, Colleen. Now I'm going to introduce our bike officer, traffic officer, and tactical officer, Dan Humphreys, to talk a little bit about bike safety and our bike patrol officers.
Thank you, Ben. As Ben stated, my name is Officer Dan Humphreys. I've been with the police department for over 10 years. The last 7 years, I've been a certified bike patrol officer with the department. Bike patrol has been something that we've been using in our police department since its inception. And in fact, from 1880 to 1910, all mobile patrol was conducted on bicycles. There's a lot of training that goes involved to become a certified bike patrol officer. Each of our 12 bike patrol officers go through a 40-hour certification course, which includes bike safety, bike maintenance, it's extensive obstacle course, dismounting, all sorts of stuff. We currently have a fleet of 8 bicycles. Most of them are Schwinn bikes. And some of the benefits of bike patrol is just another form of high visibility that we can provide. It's easier to get around through parks and parking lots, and which gives us a better opportunity to be more interactive with the community as a whole. You can see things, you can hear things a lot better, even smell things. You can smell things a lot better than when you're in a patrol vehicle. Our very own Sergeant Glenn Zernick, he actually participates in our bike unit for I.D.E.S callouts, which is a mobile field force. In the picture on the slide there, he's participating during a protest. So that is our very own Sergeant Zernick. So a little bit about Illinois bike safety laws. Cyclists must obey the same rules of the road as motor vehicles. This includes proper lane usage and obeying traffic signals. You must stop at stop signs if in the roadway. You must stay to the right, and you can be no more than 2 riders abreast. At least one hand must be on the handlebars at all times. When riding at night, you need to have bikes have to have a white light in the front and a red reflector in the rear. Some of the hand signals that you that you should be using: a left turn signal with your left hand out, right turn signal is your left arm. Using your left arm, it's positioned up like this. Using your right arm, it's facing the right, and then stop is backwards like that. So some of our River Forest bike safety laws: all children under the age of 16 must wear a properly fitted bicycle helmet. And there's no restrictions on sidewalk riding, so it's recommended for children that they ride on the sidewalk and adults ride in the street. Sidewalk cyclists are considered pedestrians under the state law, so but they must have to yield as a pedestrian. And when you're parking your bikes, make sure you don't obstruct the public way, so don't leave your bikes out on the public way. At this point, I'm going to turn over to Ben Ransom to talk about our bike registration program that's free and easy to use.
Thanks, Officer Humphreys. So when we're talking about bikes, it's important to know, especially in the summer, that bike theft is up in general, and we want to make sure that we secure our bikes properly. One thing that you might hear around our department is to make sure that your bike is the hardest to steal on the rack. So we encourage you to invest in a good bicycle lock, like a U-lock, something that is hard to defeat, and you may want to even use more than one locking device to make sure that your bike is secure. And just because your bike is left at home doesn't mean that it's secure, so secure it inside a house or lock it up even in your backyard, because we have experienced bike thefts out of yards. As far as bike registration, this goes along with recovering bikes. It's a free service. You can register your bike at our department or at our tents when we're at events, community events, but also now online through the village website, vrf.us, keyword bike registration. You can register online, and we will get that bike sticker to you right away. The bike sticker is a quick way for our officers or anyone recovering a bicycle to identify whose bike it is, and also for us to maintain information should your bike be stolen and need to be entered, a serial number entered into our database for stolen bicycles. Besides bike registration, some of our other services that we offer are our emergency ID bracelet program for individuals in need, for responding officers or other first responders such as medical personnel to get quick, easy information, access to specific needs. So, for instance, someone with an autistic individual might have autism on their band. If they have an emergency, they can simply show their band, and the first responder will know exactly what their issue is or what extra things that they need to be mindful of. So that is a free program that can be signed up with through me or at one of our tents at our community events. If you check the list here, lots of other services that we offer to our community: child safety seat inspections, which we've spoken extensively on in the past, in our past presentations, vacation watch program, our programs in the schools, which we hope to continue despite the COVID epidemic, and other things such as red self-defense and free gun lock project. Any of these information, go to our website for more information or contact our police department, and you can contact me specifically, Officer Ransom, for more information on these services. A nice benefit of hosting these quarterly meetings is we can address problematic trends as they arise, and as things that we see as a department, calls that we respond to, and I'd like to speak briefly on that, specifically starting with fireworks. So we've made this announcement several times this summer through various mediums, but we're still receiving reports of illegal firework use in our neighborhood in close proximity to buildings at all hours of the night. And We've received several doorbell camera submissions of people setting off these fireworks. The most recent one was a video that took place after 3 in the morning. So we just want to remind everyone again that this activity is inconsiderate to your neighbors, it's dangerous, and most importantly, it's illegal. Our ordinances and state laws prohibit any person from using, selling, delivering, exploding, or possessing fireworks in the village all year round. And the term fireworks, we're talking about firecrackers, cherry bombs, M80s, bottle rockets, Roman candles, and many more. So for more information on that, you can research the Illinois Pyrotechnic Use Act. But our officers will be continuing to enforce these laws, and those found in violation will be subject to tickets or arrests based on whenever appropriate. So please be considerate of your neighbors and put the fireworks away or dispose of them properly. If you witness illegal fireworks, you can call our emergency or non-emergency number, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the best way to stop it is to report it as it happens and get our officers out there to respond to it. Moving on, we know in the wake of COVID-19, many businesses and government programs have had to delay or alter the way that they operate to accommodate public safety. And unfortunately, this provides new opportunities for fraud and scams. So I'd like to hit on a few that you may be aware of on local news. Specifically, you may have seen a recent news story on people receiving debit cards from the Illinois Department of Employment and Security, though they didn't file for unemployment. And in some cases, they might receive cards to a deceased family member. So we've received some reports of this locally in town. We've also seen the news ourselves, and after some research, we realized that this is happening all across Illinois and also in other states. Our researches and the reports made have not really indicated what the offender would gain by filing this, especially if you have the card in your own hand, because we believe that it's to get the card that itself, to use the money that's on the card. But still, according to I.D.E.S, if you receive the card and you didn't ask for it, you may be the victim of fraud, or maybe set up to be the victim of fraud in the future. So definitely contact I.D.E.S to report the fraud at illinois.gov/IDES, as you can see on the slide there. And also you're going to want to monitor your personal finances and accounts closely. We've also become aware of some utilities fraud and ComEd fraud. Most specifically, these types of fraud can happen pretty frequently with all different types of utility companies and different ways of trying to scam people out of paying money for services that are not actually being threatened. So we had a resident contact us that someone proposing to be from ComEd threatening to shut off the utilities if payment wasn't made, and this resident did her own investigation and contacted ComEd and verified that ComEd was not making those phone calls and they will not threaten to shut off utilities, especially with everything that's been going on with the COVID epidemic. So our advice, as we said before, is to hang up, to do your research before making any payments. You can research online, you can contact Better Business Bureau, you can call a trusted friend or relative for advice, or consult with our police department. But don't rush to make those payments, because the scammers are preying on fear and ignorance of how things work, especially with COVID going on. So use your resources, use your best judgment, and go with your instincts. And speaking about that, every so often we host a scam and fraud seminar for more of an in-depth discussion on this topic. We are usually joined by the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission, and it's a good program that we partner with them on, and we put it on we've put on at least once a year for the last couple of years. So be on the alert for the next one coming out. And if you have any more pressing questions on that, you can contact us, or you can go to our website, search keyword scams and fraud, and you can see a breakdown of the types of scams and fraud that we've encountered and what you can do should you encounter them yourself. I want to talk a little bit about contacting the police in both emergency and non-emergency matters. basically the who, the what, the why. So the what is any emergency and is where you need police, fire, or medical services. This may seem obvious, but we do find that sometimes crimes can go unreported or underreported. So we want to look at a little bit at why and see if that we can educate our community to make better the best decisions in the wake of an emergency. So some reasons for not calling the police for suspected criminal activity might be the thought that it's none of my business. I'm minding my own business. I don't want to jump to conclusions if something looks suspicious or I heard something suspicious. Well, on the contrary, you may be the next victim if you don't report something and say something happened, a burglary happened, or any kind of major or minor crime happened next door. What's to say that you won't be the next victim? And how would you feel if your neighbor saw something happening at your house, at your residence, and thought, that's none of my business? You probably would hope that they would call. Or there might be the thought that someone else will report it. I see it clearly, but someone else will report it. I'm just going to mind my own business and hope that someone else does the right thing. And that's a common misbelief that crime doesn't occur in broad daylight or in busy places where people are going to call. Actually, the crimes happen at any time of the day, and particularly burglaries can happen during the middle of the day when people are at work or children are at school. So don't assume that just because it's broad daylight that something isn't happening. So we encourage you to be that good Samaritan and to step up and simply just making a call to our police department. And we always say, if you see or hear something, say something. There's sometimes a misconception that we're too busy, and we always take these calls, especially calls for in-progress crimes or suspicious activity, taken very seriously, and we always make them a high priority. So we're definitely not too busy. We just want people to feel safe. And if something's occurring that is not making you feel safe or make you feel unsafe, then we want you to call us. And finally, sometimes you might hear something and think, or a dog barks in the middle of the night, and you think, oh, I just heard a noise, but it was probably nothing. Well, why did it draw to your attention? Well, probably because it was out of the ordinary. And if it's out of the ordinary, it's worth calling, or at least worth checking out. Trust your instincts. Better to be safe than sorry. So call us out. So if you see suspicious activity, call us. Don't rely on someone else to act. Don't waste precious time consulting with someone else first. We've had cases where victims of crimes in progress have, before contacting us, contacted friends, family, even legal counsel, trying to ask what they should do. Well, call us first. Let us get there to keep you safe, and then other people can be consulted. So when in doubt, call us out. So how are you going to call us? Of course, our emergency, 911. Don't be afraid to call 911. I'm going to walk you through what you're going to say to our dispatchers. And in non-emergencies, you can call 708-366-7125. And that non-emergency call will still go to our same dispatchers. It will simply be marked as not as a high priority call. So same dispatchers, we're going to be coming either way. We just probably won't be coming lights and sirens if you call a non-emergency number. So what do you say when a dispatcher answers the phone? You're going to try to remain calm, describe clearly why you're calling, give your name, address, a return call phone number, detailed description of suspect and vehicle involved, last known location or direction of travel. These are all pieces of information that officers need to know quickly in order to keep you safe, find you, protect you, and apprehend an offender, especially in some type of violent crime. Stay calm, remain on the phone to give additional information. The dispatchers wanted me to tell everyone, and they usually tell our kids that are in school assemblies, that if you are calling from a landline, they will know your location. But if you're calling from a cell phone, they will not immediately know your location. So they're going to have to ask you, and you're going to have to tell them. So if you call from a cell phone and hang up, they're going to call you back and ask where you are. So don't just assume that just because you called that we know exactly where you are. So get that information to us out quickly so we can respond quickly. Any other questions on that, feel free to contact me at our police department, Officer Ransom, and I will turn this over to Commander James Greenwood to talk about our Illinois traffic stop study. Commander.
Thank you, Ben. Hello and good evening. My name is Commander James Greenwood with River Forest Police Department, and I'm going to speak a little bit about the 2019 Illinois traffic stop study. In the past two community forums that we had, we did cover the information from the 2018 study, and during the last forum, we had just learned that July 1st, the 2019 study was released, so I wanted to have an opportunity to cover that for folks out there today. Excuse me. The traffic stop study began back in 2003 when it was signed into law. In 2004, it was the first study, and every year since, the study's been completed by the Illinois Department of Transportation. Where the data comes from is important. The Illinois traffic stop forms that are completed by officers on traffic stops is used to complete most of the data. There's up to 60 fields, I think it's approximately 60 fields that are available for each stop. Sometimes every box doesn't need to be ticked or hit, but it's a lot of information that is compiled. A little bit about the 2019 study. Again, the rate is an important number to understand. That's the number of individual stops divided by the benchmark. I'll talk a little bit about the benchmark in a moment. The ratio is the minority rate of people stopped compared to the white rate of people stopped. The benchmark data is compiled from the American Community Survey from 2014 to 2018, and the 2010 U.S. Census, and the Illinois Secretary of State provides information for it as well. And just a quick plug to remember, if you haven't filled out your census information, please do so. It's very important that everyone is counted. There is a statistical issue with benchmarks that comes up in this study, and the biggest part is the boundaries of the cities and counties may not closely fit the actual area of residence of drivers and pedestrians who might be encountered in a specific community. In the 2019 study, the River Forest Police Department benchmark is comprised of the populations of all the cities within the 4th District of Cook County. So in the past, the number that had been used from 2004 to 2018 for comparison was the estimated minority driving population. This study has its benefits in that it breaks down information a lot more robustly. However, this departure from past benchmark, it makes it difficult to compare the previous studies to this year's study. There were 21 jurisdictions used to compile the benchmark, which includes villages close to us like Oak Park, as far as distance goes, all the way out to LaGrange Park, and as far north as Franklin Park. Some other issues that come up with using the ACS information is that information from the American Community Survey is random sampling of population, so it's not as complete as the actual census itself. However, given the fact the census is 10 years old, that's why the people completing the study, the analysts completing the study, used that information as well. Some more limitations about the benchmark. People from outside the jurisdiction travel through the jurisdiction. So I said it wrong, outside the benchmark area. So you might have this large benchmark area that goes from Oak Park out to Bellwood and Berkeley as far as east and west. However, people travel from further beyond that benchmark, from the city of Chicago all the way out to the far western suburbs. Different groups use and travel the roads at different rates and different times, and there are seasonal variations as well. That's all information that was included in the 2019 study. As well, a recommendation that was made from the study, and I think it's one that holds some weight is that an observational study or studies to create a benchmark would be more accurate. As I said before, in the past studies since 2004, the estimated minority driving population was used for comparison, and the River Forest EMDP, in short, was 59.6 for the past several years, and a comparison of the 2019 data, just so that you can compare the old data to the new data, because you couldn't compare it straight across. I completed some of the numbers on that to see where we were at. And the ratio of white drivers compared to minority drivers this year, or for 2019 study, was 1 to 1.01. The year prior to that, in 2018, it was 1 to 1.06. So what that means is the ratio, the closer you are to 1, the better you're doing. Now that again is with the old benchmark that was used, the EMDP. So it has changed for this year's study. This slide demonstrates the 2019 stop data using 2018 EMDP for comparison. Again, this was to do more of a straight comparison of apples to apples because the benchmark had changed drastically. These are the results for the traffic study. The top portion of the slide shows the state numbers, and the bottom portion of the slide shows the summary of traffic stops for the River Forest Police. In all categories, River Forest shows a lower lower frequency of or departure from the ratio of 1 across the board. The second panel of slide just goes further down into the information. And again, one of the benefits of this year's study is that initially early in the study, rather than further down just when they got to consent searches or different vehicle searches, earlier on in the study here, when we pull back, we see the violations broken down by category earlier on, and it provides a better picture of this information. In the third panel of the study, we still see that the River Forest numbers are lower than the statewide numbers. And when we look at the very bottom row of the River Forest numbers, which is, you'll see that the ratio again is 1, 1.1, 1.2, so very much in line with the goal of being at 1. The fourth panel of the study demonstrates more additional information, and again, when we look at the bottom rows compared with the state, River Forest is doing well, and our officers, again, with the ratio being very close to 1 across the board. The fifth panel of the study demonstrates the consent searches or non-consent searches, basically searches subject to arrest, and breaks that down further. In the 2019 study, it showed that 16 consent searches were completed in total, 116 total searches, which would include searches subject to arrest, and in 9 stops, contraband was recovered. At this point, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I will turn this over to Detective Michael Fries to discuss crime trends.
Hi, I'm Detective Mike Fries from the River Forest Police Department. I'm going to be talking about some crime prevention techniques that we should all utilize to lower the crime rates in our town, which are obviously possible. Officer Ransom already talked about bike thefts and how we need to lock our bikes up, because every bike theft we've had so far has been bicycles that have been unlocked or unattended at the homes. We need to write down our serial numbers, and also we need to take photographs of our bikes so that if your bike is stolen, we can attempt to locate it. We've also had numerous car burglaries. Most of them are unreported, but the majority of all our car burglaries are unlocked vehicles and also unlocked garages, and keys are being left in the vehicle, which is also causing a spike in motor vehicle thefts. We don't want to leave our vehicles running. We don't want to leave our keys in the vehicle or someplace close to the vehicle where they can get a key from a garage and then steal the vehicle. We've also had some elderly abuse scams where they are pretending to be from Public Works or the Water Department or ComEd, and they try to scam to get into your home, distract you, and take your belongings. In those cases, do not allow anybody inside your home. If there's an unexpected guest, if you don't feel comfortable answering the door, you can call the police, and we will determine what they're soliciting. And if they're up to no good and you don't answer the door, they're probably going to move along. But we do not want to let anybody inside our homes that don't belong there. As far as camera systems and setting alarms, we need to set our alarms for our homes. Do not leave anything unlocked. Vehicles, including your homes, your garages. If we put up cameras around our homes on the exterior, maybe even interior, ring door cameras, any type of exterior cameras, it will most likely the person who's going to be coming onto your property will see those cameras and move along. If not, at least if they do something on your property, it will give us the opportunity to see who was on your property and maybe disseminate those photographs and videos to other jurisdictions, counties, or the surrounding towns, and maybe we can identify a suspect in the case if your home is burglarized, your car is burglarized, or garage. Let's see. Our department does allow for residential security surveys. So if you're unsure of what needs to be done around your house, we can go to your home, advise on what camera systems you could put along your house. We can't give you exactly which ones to buy, but maybe extra lighting. Maybe there's doors that aren't able to be secured. We can check them out, make sure that your homes and your garages are safe. We do offer also, vacation watches, extra watches. If any time you feel that your home isn't safe, either you see somebody coming around your house often, it seems suspicious to you, or you're going to be out of town, you can contact the police department, ask for vacation watches, extra watches. Our officers that patrol the streets are aware of every extra watch and vacation watch in their beat, and they will make sure that they check on those on a daily basis. So again, just make sure you lock your vehicles, lock up your bikes, lock up your homes, and that will reduce the crime rates in River Forest. Chief?
Well, thank you. This is the part of the evening where we get a lot of questions, and I know we've had a couple forums, and we've been together the first two times, Facebook Live, and now using Zoom, which was recommended, and so far we're seeing some good feedback on it. Even though you might not have any questions now, Sarah, our moderator, went ahead and put Commander Greenwood's and my own email. We're available to respond by phone, email, or if you want to come in and meet with us. In this, as we're sadly seeing the uptick again in the COVID cases, that we still want to be able to bring the outreach to the community. So if you have a condo board association, a business group, a community group, a block group, we can arrange to use Zoom or another format to interact and also meet with your group to speak on the merit of any questions or issues that you have with regard to crime prevention or any other type of village ordinance related issues or safety issues to the community. So even though we might not be able to have 50 people in the room tonight, we're glad that you were able to join us. I also want to recognize Trustee Vasquez, who's representing the board tonight, who's out in the audience, and thank you, Trustee, for your attendance this evening. And once again, I'll check one more time to see if we have any questions, and if not, we will wrap this this meeting up. Seeing none, and once again, I appreciate you tuning in, and I appreciate those that tuned in also to our last couple forums. We'll have our next quarterly meeting coming up, the next quarter, of course, and then we'll also probably be having a policing and social justice forum, at least one session in between. I want you to stay safe. I want to make sure you're wearing your masks. If you see something, say something. And we're here to all look out for our neighbors and enjoy what's left of the summer. Thank you, and have a great evening.